Imagine growing up in an environment where loyalty is not just a value but a life or death sentence, where every hug can hide a silent order, and every family dinner can become the stage for an invisible judgment. This is the world of the Mafia, a world where blood is not just inheritance but also a chain, where the very idea of family is forged in iron, fear, and manipulation. The Mafia has always known that the power of weapons is strong but limited. Guns can silence mouths, impose respect, and seize territories, but nothing is as effective as controlling hearts and minds. And the secret to this dominion does not lie only in money, violence, or the law of silence. It lies in what should be the most sacred and untouchable bond, the family. In the underworld of the Mafia, the word family has two meanings. The first is literal: mother, father, children, siblings, people who share the same blood and the same roof.
The second is symbolic: the family with a capital F, one that goes beyond blood ties and becomes a giant organism governed by loyalty, obedience, and fear. A gangster who betrays a boss is not just breaking a business agreement, he is condemning his children. He is putting his wife's life at risk. He is turning his own family into bargaining chips. This is where the Mafia's emotional web is born, an invisible net that entangles each member, imprisoning them without visible chains.
Imagine a patient spider weaving threads so thin they look fragile, but when combined they become unbreakable. That is the power of the Mafia. Every gesture of affection, every promise, every veiled threat builds a prison without bars. In this video, we will explore how the Mafia transforms family into a weapon. We will dive into the minds of bosses, soldiers, and even wives and children who, often without realizing it, are used as shields and instruments of manipulation. You will understand how love mixes with fear, how loyalty becomes a chain, and how at the heart of the Mafia, the very idea of family can be twisted into a tool of absolute domination. Get ready, because what you are about to hear is not just a story about organized crime. It is a story about psychology, about control, and about how even the most sacred bonds can be corrupted when placed in the service of power. In the Mafia, the word family is both a refuge and a sentence. For those born inside this world, there is no choice. From an early age, sons and daughters are taught, sometimes subtly, sometimes brutally, that loyalty to blood and loyalty to the organization are the same thing. It becomes impossible to separate where true love ends and calculated manipulation begins. An ordinary mobster can be a caring father at home, but a cold executioner on the streets. The same hand that caresses his child's head at bedtime may be the one pulling the trigger the next day. And this contradiction is part of the poison. Children grow up believing that crime is just a natural extension of life, that protecting the family means obeying any order, even killing. This is how the Mafia builds an emotional prison. A soldier who thinks of betraying does not fear only for himself. He fears for what might happen to his wife, his elderly mother, his young children. This layer of terror is so effective that explicit threats are often unnecessary. A simple look from the boss, heavy with silence, is enough to remind him that his entire family is at risk if he slips. But don't be mistaken. The family with a capital F demands as much as the family of blood. A member who skips a meeting, arrives late for a collection, or questions an order is punished. And the punishment rarely falls only on him. Houses are burned down. Brothers mysteriously disappear. Children grow up without a father, without a mother, forever marked by the shadow of something they cannot understand. This duality is what makes the Mafia so powerful. When a man enters the organization, he does not sign a simple pact of loyalty. He drags everyone around him into it. Parents, siblings, wives, children, all of them become hostages to a choice they often never had the chance to contest. It is as if an invisible net spreads over the entire house, wrapping every wall, every family photograph, every shared meal. And the manipulation doesn't stop there. Many times, wives are drawn into small roles in the business, hiding money, delivering messages, concealing weapons. Slowly, the line between accomplice and victim disappears. By the time they realize it, they are already trapped in the same net, unable to denounce or escape without dragging their own family into the abyss. This is the Mafia's dark genius, using love as a chain, using the purity of the family bond as a guarantee of silence and obedience. No one escapes without leaving pieces of themselves behind. No one betrays without condemning the ones they love. What makes the Mafia nearly impossible to dismantle is not just its structure of power, but the way it weaponizes the most human feeling of all: love. A father inside the organization doesn't need chains to keep his children in line, just his gaze, the weight of tradition, and the silent threat that any mistake could put everyone at risk. Affection merges with terror, creating a cruel paradox. The more someone loves, the more vulnerable they become. Psychology teaches us that love is one of the strongest bonds between human beings. It ensures cohesion, protection, and the continuation of life. But in the hands of the Mafia, love becomes a trap. A boss doesn't need to shout orders when his subordinate knows his daughter's safety depends on his obedience. The memory of a child's smile, the vision of a wife waiting at the table, these become ammunition. Consider how recruitment often works. Many young men don't join the Mafia because they crave power or wealth, but because they want to protect their families. The organization offers an illusion. If you're with us, your mother will never go hungry, your brothers will be safe, your children will have a future. This promise, cloaked in shadows, is seductive. But what they don't realize is that by accepting this protection, they are signing their own sentence of imprisonment. This twisted love also shows itself in small gestures. The mobster who brings expensive gifts to his children is buying not just smiles but loyalty and silence. The wife who receives jewelry in exchange for complicity discovers the glitter hides bloodstains, and when the truth comes out, it's already too late. There's no turning back. The love that should free has become the rope tightening around the neck. Behind the scenes, Mafia bosses know exactly how to manipulate these emotions. They don't always need to threaten or raise their voices. A subtle phrase can be more devastating than an explosion. It would be a shame if something happened to your boys at school, and that's enough. A father's love becomes his greatest weakness. His fear of losing those he loves keeps him obedient, docile, unable to react. The Mafia knows that when someone loves deeply, they are willing to sacrifice. And it is this sacrifice that the organization exploits to the limit. Many members prefer to die rather than betray, not out of honor or loyalty, but because they know their death might spare their children. This is the logic of the web. Every thread is a bond of love stretched until it becomes a prison. One of the darkest aspects of the Mafia's emotional web is the weight of silence. Women are often its primary victims. Wives, mothers, daughters. They know the secrets, but they rarely speak. Silence is not just imposed. It is cultivated, nurtured by fear, and the certainty that a single misplaced word can destroy the entire household. In many real stories, women live between luxury and terror. Mansions, expensive cars, elegant clothes. But each object carries the weight of a hidden truth. Everything was bought with blood and suffering. Some accept this fate as inevitable, believing they are part of something greater. Others try to resist, only to discover resistance has a price too high to pay. Cruelly, in the twisted psychology of the Mafia, women are also tools of control. They are used to reinforce loyalty. Often they are manipulated into raising their children within the same logic of obedience. And so the criminal tradition perpetuates itself from generation to generation, like a poison passed in a mother's milk. And when a wife or mother dares to break the cycle, denouncing or trying to escape, the response is merciless. They become examples of what happens to those who challenge the order. Some disappear mysteriously. Others live hidden under protection, carrying forever the trauma of having loved someone who, in the end, had been their jailer. Silence, then, is the cruelest invisible chain. It is not just about keeping quiet to protect oneself, but about bearing daily the burden of knowing that everyone's life depends on your mouth staying shut. It is a prison with no bars, one engraved in the mind, the heart, the very breath. Thus, the role of women in the Mafia is both victim and accomplice. They hold the family together, sustain the household, but also, consciously or unconsciously, reinforce the emotional web. They are the ones who tuck their children into bed, often without revealing that their father may not return, that at any moment, blood might seep into the walls of their home. If the Mafia were only a criminal organization of adults, it would be weaker. Its true power lies in how it crosses generations, turning fear and obedience into inheritance. Children grow up learning not to talk to strangers about what happens at home, that their father works in business, and that too many questions are dangerous. This childhood silence turns into blind loyalty in adulthood. The most disturbing part is that often mobsters' children don't choose their destiny. They are raised to believe there is no other way. School may teach math and history, But at home, the real lesson is about power, loyalty, and revenge. Thus, the Mafia doesn't just control one generation, it ensures the next is equally trapped in its web. Some young people try to escape. They want to study, to build a life outside this cycle of violence, but the stigma follows them. They are children of mobsters. They carry a surname heavier than any diploma, and when one dares to break away completely, the price is exclusion, persecution, eternal fear. This legacy is perhaps the Mafia's most powerful weapon, its ability to turn fear into culture, into family tradition. A surname is not just identity, it is a sentence, a mark burned into the skin, one that doesn't fade even if you move to another city, even if you try to start over. And so the Mafia guarantees its survival, because it is not just about money or power, but about an emotional structure that infiltrates the heart of what should be most sacred, the home. With each new generation, the web is reinforced. More threads are woven, and the emotional prison becomes more complex, more impossible to break. The Mafia's emotional web is, without doubt, one of the cruelest forms of control ever devised. By turning family into a weapon, the organization not only ensures obedience but slowly destroys the essence of what it means to love and protect. Love, which should liberate, becomes shackles. Silence, which should be a choice, becomes condemnation. Tradition, which should inspire pride, becomes the chain dragging entire generations into darkness. But there is something even more unsettling. This logic is not unique to the Mafia. On a smaller scale, in different contexts, we've all seen love used as a tool of manipulation. Parents controlling children through guilt, partners confusing affection with possession, bosses exploiting the emotional dedication of their workers. What the Mafia does on a grand scale is only the extreme version of something that sadly belongs to human nature, the ability to twist feelings in order to keep power. And this is where reflection becomes inevitable. What do we learn when we stare into this darkness? Perhaps that we must remain alert to the invisible webs in our own lives, to question when love stops being protection and becomes prison, to recognize when silence is no longer a choice, but imposition, and above all, to understand that the true power of family should never be built on fear but on freedom. The Mafia shows us the darkest side of human nature, but it also reminds us that choice always exists, that breaking the web may be painful, dangerous, but it is possible, that in the end, the greatest victory is not obeying out of fear, but loving without chains. And so, by reflecting on this hidden world, perhaps we can look at our own lives with new eyes, to ask ourselves, are we trapped in an emotional web, or are we capable of loving freely, without fear, without manipulation, without chains? That answer can change everything. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and like this video. Also, turn on the notification bell to be notified of our posts. See you in the next video.